Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Somewhere between science and superstition.
We have such sights to show you.
Strange Eons. Welcome to Strange Eons Radio. That's Eric Morgan over there.
Hello.
That's Vanessa Williams over there.
Howdy.
I'm Kelly Young. Hey, guys. A real quick little chirp there, and then I want to get into, if you listen to the last episode on Download Day, there may have been some music cues that were a little confusing or something, and that was Eric's way of trying to warn everybody that we were getting into spoiler territory. So I wanted to talk to not just you two, but to the listeners about that first and say, is that something that we're worried about? Do you guys as listeners worry about us talking about anything that is considered a spoiler? And if so, do you need some kind of musical cue to let you know? Or is it okay if we just say, hey, going into spoilers or something like that? So what's your guys' thoughts on it?
I mean, I like that people have the option of knowing that they don't have to have the ending of a film revealed. Like, I hate spoilers personally, but I also have had a complaint from one of my friends who said that the spoiler alert music or sound or whatever we're doing is like super loud and like really startling.
The thought more was about coming back to it, not to the start, which, you know, that can easily be altered if it's a sound issue. Because there's a lot of podcasts, like if you're listening to, say, you should never do this to our podcast, of course, but if you're listening to commercials, there's a beginning and ending music cue at the beginning and end of commercials, and I just hit that 15-second fast forward. So when you get to that second thing that says spoilers, you know the spoilers are done, and you can start listening again without worrying about having the spoilers. I'm going to guess most of the listeners we have now don't care about it because they're listening to us. And we haven't ever worried about getting rid of spoilers before. But I still would love to hear what people have to say, and if they're interested, or if they've got a friend who said, man, I kind of like their show, but I can't listen to it till I've watched all the movies they're talking about.
I feel like we're pretty good about not giving spoilers on new films.
Oh, yeah.
True.
Yeah.
On the other hand, we are primarily a film discussion podcast. And so I unless there's a big twist, I generally feel like most of the people either know enough about film that that there's no such thing as a spoiler anymore. It's kind of how I look at stuff. When I listened to it, the music hit and I was very confused, and once I figured out what was going on, I sent Eric a text, and he responded with a satisfying but very passive-aggressive answer, where he said, I know you don't care about those people who don't like spoilers. And I was
Actually, you're actively aggressive against them sometimes.
I don't feel like I'm actively aggressive, but I am an adult, and I have seen enough movies.
There it is. There's the aggressive. You're a fucking kid if you can't handle a spoiler.
It's not
however,
just that.
am an adult. So
I'm saying that I've seen enough movies that I don't feel like I'm surprised at anything. And so, and in fact, not only that, but that I can figure out where a film is going. And I just assume most people can. Mm-hmm. You brought up something that I hadn't considered, which was, Eric said, I want to reach out to the people who may not listen to us because there are spoilers in the podcast. And I was like, I didn't even consider that. So I'd like to hear the feedback as well, and then completely ignore it.
There you go.
Sure. This is not a democracy.
Right. You guys, I watched on Shudder this week a movie that I think the both of you are just going to flip for. It's called Monstrum. And Steve Holitz, I'm talking to you if you really enjoyed the political intrigue of Kingdom, a Korean 16th century horror film or horror series, you're going to love this, which is basically a kaiju film set in 16th century Korea.
Oh,
And it's got all the politics. That's just an Asian culture thing. Their horror has a ton of politics in it. I mean, if you watch any Godzilla movie, there's just tons of political stuff going on while this giant monster is stomping on the city. And this is really great. It's got all sorts of stuff going on with the plague. The plague that went through Korea is an actual thing that happened. They tie it to this giant monster that a lot of people think is a myth at first, and that shows up, and it looks really great. It's got an adorable little origin story, and so that you're feeling bad for the monster when it's getting attacked and stuff like that. And I thought it was great. It's on Shudder. Go watch it now. Monstrum.
and it's a film. It's not a show.
It's not a series. It is a film.
Awesome.
Yeah, I was going through Shudder and I saw that poster and I just kind of looked at it quick going, what the hell? That is not a Shudder looking thing at all. But then if you look closer at the poster, yeah, it does. The background image and stuff. So yeah, that's been on my to watch list for a while now.
I know you're going to like it, Eric.
Yeah. Speaking of Shudder, they had a big release this week that I know Kelly watched. I don't know, Vanessa, if you watched Blood Machine.
No, I did not.
It's probably okay.
Wow. Huh. Was it like a Shudder original, or like what was special about it?
Yeah, it's a Shudder original, I guess, as far as that goes. I don't even know what that means. I have a feeling they're just buying up completed projects and slapping, Shudder onto it. I don't think they actually paid for that to be made.
I mean, visually it's really, amazing. And the music is what? Carpenter
Brute, yeah.
Brute, yeah. So the music is great. The acting is less great. And the story is...
incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Oh, dear. I don't think I want to watch this.
I loved it. But I have no idea what was going on. And it's only 3 episodes. And I mean, each episode was like less than 20 minutes, right?
The whole thing's like 50 minutes runtime.
Yeah.
Whoa,
for all of them.
That's short.
Damn, the sun got bright on here all of a sudden. Fading away into a ghost. Yeah, it's visually great. It's just, and there's also, along that 50-minute runtime, there's probably about 2.5 minutes of end credits on each episode.
That's true.
Stunning amount of credits, which, a lot of people obviously worked on this because visually it's amazing.
It looks like an issue of Heavy Metal from 1979 that came to life. It's just these amazing colors, some bizarre artsy-fartsy storyline that is very, very strong female empowerment. That is what I got out of it, Eric. I assume that's what you got out of it, because the rest of it is like, I don't know what's going on.
That covers it.
And it's live action, though. It's not animated.
Yeah, but it's
sort of. I
mean, there are real people in it, yes, but I have a feeling everything was shot on a green screen.
Yeah, it's live action, like Sin City was live action.
Oh.
It's live, but severely altered.
That sounds crazy.
Oh, it'd be one of those things where it's like, well, what's it about? I don't know. There's spaceships. I think the spaceships are living spaceships. And there's a guy who was hunting one of the spaceships, and then beyond that, I have no idea. The music was really cool, though.
Yes. Yeah, the music was great.
This week, I checked out a film that I've been meaning to get to. I missed it in the theaters. And Mr. Mark Ruffalo stars in a film. Have you guys seen Dark Waters?
Heard of it, but I've not seen it.
Seen it.
So it's not a horror film, but it will leave you destroyed. Like you'll never be able to look at anything the same again. It's basically like a small guy versus giant corporation that is destroying a small town with pollution that they're dumping straight into the waterways. It's based on a real thing. But when they start to get into the science and breaking down these chemicals that were invented by different companies and how the Environmental Protection Agency, basically, because it's not a chemical that's defined in science, and they've made this new chemical, our protections don't cover it until somebody actually goes in and declares it as being unsafe. So things like Teflon, and that was the big one, was super, super cancerous and super, super toxic. And it was in everyone's homes. So it was just harrowing. It was harrowing. And it's just like, I don't even know. It was like, this is in thousands of products. I'm like, oh God, we're all going to die. And then they were like, and that's just one chemical. There's not even all the other chemicals. It's just, oh, it's rough. It's a really rough film. But it was a good watch. It was a great film. It was a great film. But it's, if you want to make yourself even more paranoid about the world you live in, it's a good choice.
Wow, what'd you watch that on?
So actually that was on a Netflix DVD.
Okay.
Ah, fancy.
I know. If I can't get to the library.
Scarecrow by mail.
True. I bet Scarecrow would have this film. They have everything.
I'm going to bring up a couple of things that I started watching and didn't love.
Oh,
so,
cool.
Eric,
Yes.
Scoob.
I did not expect you to do that, but that's all right.
Wow.
22 minutes in, I was like, I've had enough of this shit. That was really, really bad. And I was really disappointed. I mean, I understand that we are living in a new world and it's a superhero dominated world and all that stuff. But Scooby-Doo is primarily a gateway drug to real horror as a kid. And they got rid of that. When they started the credits and you got to see the old monsters from the old original credits
That
done
was
up
the
cool.
best part.
I was like, oh shit, this is going to be a blast. And then it was not.
Right. No, that's why I said it is definitely not a murder mystery story in any way. It is.
Wow.
It's totally different.
Yeah.
That's so weird. I can't even envision, like, I don't even know. So it's just the characters having a good time.
But yes. Well,
Sort
I
of.
guess having a good time. Interacting with Simon Cowell, which was the deciding factor for me checking out.
Oh, yeah, he only has that and like another. I think he's part of the problem at the end. I think he's one of the villains or something.
That's interesting because he's definitely part of the problem at the beginning. So that. Then I also started, I didn't even realize this had gone into 4 episodes already. The new Penny Dreadful series.
Yeah.
Which is called Penny Dreadful, City of Angels, which should be everything I love. It's set in 1938 Los Angeles. It's homicide detectives and noir and some kind of supernatural thing, but I can't figure out what. It's got Nathan Lane as a homicide detective.
Wow.
Whoa.
I should have just loved this, and I made it through 1 episode and said, well, I think I'm done with that.
I don't know what Penny Dreadful did or what their story style was, because I know a lot of people really like it. I didn't make it past the first season of the original run. So when more was coming back, I was like, nice. Fans will enjoy it, but I am not one of them.
Well, I was one of the fans of the first series,
Right.
so I was hopeful. And then this is just so completely different, and not just in, I mean, it's none of the same actors or anything like that, and I'm fine. It's set, whatever, 100 years later. But it's none of the tone. And the whole thing of Penny Dreadful was it brought in vampires and werewolves and a Frankenstein monster. It was all this stuff, from the classics. And I don't know where this is going, but there's none of that feeling in it. So
Strange.
yeah.
I had a pleasant surprise the other day on Netflix when I saw that season 4 of Riverdale has popped up. It's now available. So I started watching that. I'm not crazy far in, but it's fine so far. They keep hinting at something towards the end that something is going to happen at the end of the season. So I'm pretty excited about that.
When you brought this up last time, I was excited, and then I realized, oh wait, I've already watched this season on the CW app.
See, yeah, and I don't have the CW app. So for me, I just have been waiting forever for this to show up because I'm cheap, I guess.
Well, the CW app is free,
It's free.
and they just play the shows the next day on that.
Yeah.
Do they have like a bank of like all the old ones?
They actually go like 7 episodes or something, and then they slowly start getting rid of the early ones.
Yeah. So it won't help you
My
now.
life could have been improved so much so long ago. Well, on
Now you know.
Netflix, it's currently available, so I'm catching up.
Well,
That's
I know what
good.
happens. I know what happens at the end of the episode or season.
Season? Is it a worthy season? Where does it rank between the seasons?
Look, because I have a lot of respect for our listeners, I'm not going to go into spoiler territory with this.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean it's a garbage show. Come on, it's a trash show.
Of course it is. Of course it is. That's why I watch it.
Yeah, I was mostly entertained. So
Okay.
That'll work.
I'm excited. I need something sometimes to watch that is horrible and just has there's no stakes for me as a viewer.
Vanessa, that show is so stupid, and it makes me feel angry that I get to the end of each episode and I go, oh, well, what's next? And click. So I don't know what it is about that trashy show, but I'm hooked on it too.
Don't get yourself tied up in One Tree Hill or Dawson's Creek. You'll find yourself doing the same thing.
Oh,
I am so above that
Dawson's
crap
Creek
and
was-
still.
Dawson's Creek was must-watch TV when it was on originally.
Yeah, the first few seasons at
Yeah.
least. But
I don't
It gets
think
really bad.
I know I didn't watch probably at least 2 seasons, but yeah, those first 2 or 3,
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, well, I
Speaking
mean,
of-
that was Kevin Williamson, the
Yeah.
Scream guy, and he
Yeah.
made his protagonist was a giant film nerd. So how are you
Yeah.
not going to watch it?
Come on. Speaking of 90s things, my sojourn back into the giant world of super 90s action movies, I think we may have wrapped up the ones worth revisiting, even if they're not great, but are fun, with a double billing of Con Air and Armageddon.
Yes.
Oh, my.
Oh, beautiful. That is the perfect double billing.
Oh, it's a lot of Bay, a lot of Bruckheimer, but Con Air is still fun. It was no The Rock is a much better film kind of thing, but it's still fully entertaining and just ridiculous. Armageddon is brilliant big film manipulation at its best, man. I mean, let's just tug at your emotions and okay, this is great.
I mean, Criterion can't be wrong. So
They did reach deep for that one, man. It's what it is. There's all kinds of just stupid stuff, but it's so like the introduction of all the characters in Armageddon, like, hey, here's the badass, and here's the guy who's a danger because he gambles or does all, it's just vignettes of each of them being introduced. Like, this is so dumb, but I love it.
Is Armageddon? I remember hating this movie. Is Armageddon the one where they go into the strip club and it's got like 90-foot high vaulted ceilings? It's like the coolest club in the world, and it just happens to be a strip club filled with gorgeous bottles. Like most strip clubs are. Is that
I mean,
that
they
one?
have a scene like that, but I don't remember the.
I just remember
club.
sitting in the theater going, Jesus Christ, if a strip club ever actually looked like this, everyone would want to go. Male or female would want to hang out in a place that looked this amazing. Unfortunately, every strip club has the grossest floors and you don't want to touch any surface.
I've never been in a strip club, but you're not selling it to me.
Vanessa, we're going next weekend when everything opens up.
Oh, there you go.
First place.
I like that of the 2-hour movie, the 45 seconds or a minute long scene was your major takeaway.
Look, I can buy everything
Impressive.
else. I can buy a bunch of drillers learning how to become astronauts very easily. But if you're going to try and tell me that strip club exists and there's no cover charge, I'm going to call bullshit. Also, Con Air falls into my list of movies where the title came before the script.
Oh, yeah. Yep. I can see
Clearly,
that.
somebody was like, Con Air, that would be a good title. Wait a
Yes.
second, Con Air, huh?
bunch of convicts in the air. Can't go
Right?
wrong.
Fuck.
You throw Nick Cage at that,
It
you're
writes
gonna get
itself.
success.
Sure.
I just love that his like hands are classified as deadly weapons.
I miss that.
That was beautiful.
That used to be a thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't
Every
hear.
martial arts movie in the 80s.
Yeah, you don't hear about anybody whose hands are classified as deadly weapons anymore. All right. On that note, should we take a little break, you guys, and come back with our pick for our genre pick this time was Vanessa, and it was plant-based horror.
Yeah.
I can't
I'm
wait to see.
excited.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what you guys came up with. So we'll be right back after these short messages.
There's a new pet.
Chia.
Chia Pet, the pottery that grows. It's fun and easy. Soak your chia, spread the seeds, keep it watered, and watch it grow. And now grow a whole collection of fun with chia teddy bears, puppies, kittens, rams, bulls. There's even a chia tree to keep your pets company. Chia Pets and Trees, the pottery that grows.
The Chia Pet and Chia Tree are available at Kmart, Rite Aid, Ames, and Woolworth. Makes a great gift.
And we are back. Vanessa, you chose this week's genre pick. That means you have to go first.
Absolutely. So this week that we are going to be talking about plants, horror or something that involves a plant. So a great example would be the film that I recommended pretty recently, Prospect, right? Where there's just like plant pollen everywhere. And it may not be about plants, but there's some kind of plant involved. The main reason I actually chose this genre is because I've needed an excuse for a little while to watch Little Joe, and I just haven't had a good enough reason to dip into it. So my pick was Little Joe.
Our aim was to create a plant with a scent that makes its owner happy.
We are entering a new era here. The first mood-lifting, antidepressant, happy plant.
We've received orders from all over the world.
I just wanted to say that I feel really proud to be working with you.
Look what I have for you. What do you say we call him Little Joe? You have to take good care of it. Keep it warm. Talk to it. It needs attention. What's so special about it? It makes you happy.
Haven't you noticed how Chris has changed? I think Little Joe's pollen has triggered something. Little Joe changes the people he infects. You're starting to notice too, aren't you? Fear can distort our perception of reality.
If I made a mistake, then it's my fault.
It seems that this has all been a bit much for you.
He frightens me.
You're a good mother. But which of your children will you choose?
Good night, Little Joe.
So you'll find this movie available on Hulu for free to watch. It's actually a BBC production, so I'm not sure. I'm sure Hulu just kind of acquired it and they're rolling with it. It's a very recent movie, 2019. It's kind of got a mixed genre, so it's a horror, but it's also sort of a mystery. It's got some drama elements in it. It's 105 minutes long, so it's not overly long. I couldn't find a budget, so it didn't really have much of a theater run. It's definitely a festival darling movie. It premiered at Cannes, and then it played at the Festival International de Science Fiction Utopolis. And I know, and Festival European du Film Fantastique in Strasbourg. So it kind of did that rather than play in theaters. So I'm guessing it's making most of its money by being on something like Hulu. So far in theaters, it grossed $196,960.
Wow, very specific.
That's what IMDb is telling me.
Nice.
And as far as Rotten Tomatoes, it's interesting. So it's got a 68 critic, 44 audience. I think that kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of sort of not super popular among the common folk.
I've never even heard of this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
I recently watched it, so.
Yes, Eric has recently watched it. The basic premise of the film is Alice, our main character, is a single mother. She's a dedicated senior plant breeder at this kind of corporation that's trying to make these new species of plants against company policy. She takes one of these plants that she's developed home as a gift for her teenage son, and it starts to change him. And the plant seems to be changing people at her workplace as well. So there's this kind of undergoing beneath the level surface horror thing happening here. Very Invasion of the Body Snatchers feel to it, where it's like, are people changing? Are they not? Is this a plant? Isn't it? So the director of this, Emily Beecham, the director of this, Jessica Hauser, is Austrian, and a lot of this film is shot in Austria. She's done a couple of other films, but she's very European, so I haven't particularly heard of them. But Lord's Amour Faux Toast Hotel. Her co-writer Geraldine Bojard has basically she's just written basically on Hauser's films. She actually started her career kind of around 2001 when her film Lovely Rita took off at Cannes. And I think she kind of has a little bit of an in the film industry. She's the sister of a costume designer, and her other half sister is a set designer. So I'm guessing that was kind of her in, and then she went to some fancy European film school. So she's not, I think she's more of an up and coming director that we'll probably start seeing more and more from. It's got kind of a cool cast. So we've got Emily Beecham, who's playing Alice, who's our kind of like boring scientist woman, I guess, main character.
You know who she is, even if you don't know.
Oh?
I don't know if you're going to reference this one in your list of things, but she played redheaded badass in Into the Badlands.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Yeah, I actually had it written down, but I didn't know. I haven't seen it. I know she's going to be a unnamed part in the upcoming Cruella movie starring Emma Stone. So that's exciting. We'll find out more about that later. And she's done a ton of UK TV. So she's just been in a lot of that. And then it's also got her co-scientist / guy who's helping her with this particular experiment named Chris. And he's played by Ben Whishaw. You guys will know him as Q, the new Q from Bond. So he's also the voice of Paddington, which I thought was great. And you'll recognize him in general. He was in Cloud Atlas, in Lobster. He was in the Fargo series. So he's been around. Her son is played by Kit Connor. And when I was watching it, I was like, this kid seems so familiar, and I could not work it out. He's maybe like 12, 13-year-old kid. He was the voice in Historic Materials.
And it has happened. Ladies and gentlemen, you really want to be watching this on YouTube. Vanessa has a bird on her head.
I don't know why now is the time. Do you want to come? No?
I think that he's fine there. Go ahead. Keep going.
He's going to poop on me eventually if he stays there too long.
That's what I'm hoping for. This is gold.
Fingers crossed. He's going to try to clean my hair too. You'll see.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh my God. It's very sweet of him.
I love this.
He just doesn't want to be alone. He's very... Say hi. Hi. Yeah, I know. I'm going to stick him on the couch. Hold on.
Baby. Oh, hey, that worked.
There he is.
Perfect.
Off he walks. So he'll be hanging out with us, probably occasionally chirping in, I guess.
Okay.
That's Loki. He's friendly enough. I can't yet put my hand out for him. He will bite me.
Oh, okay.
So he really dominates our relationship right now.
No kidding.
Yeah. Anyway, where was I? So
the kid actor you were talking about.
So he plays the voice of Pantalomian, who's the animal friend in His Dark Materials. If you guys have seen that.
Yeah.
And on HBO. And he's the boy in Mr. Holmes. So
He's having a conversation with you here.
Yeah. R2 is trying to tell you something.
I don't even know, man. Hey, buddy. He wants to be part of it. He just wants to like hang out and chat. He's trying to make his human sounds.
You watch Little Joe with you, just wants to throw in some thoughts.
Yeah, basically. I can get him removed. I'm gonna pause this for a second.
Okay.
I'm gonna have somebody come in and take him away. Bear with
Sounds
me
so
for a
brutal.
minute. I know. No, he'll just hang out in another room. So the boy I actually recognized and was trying to work out like what I'd seen him in. So what I haven't seen him in is His Dark Materials on HBO. He's voicing the familiar of the girl. It's a character named Pantalomian.
He's like a little ferret or something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
He's like a little doodad.
Bert's not happy.
I will not be ignored.
He'll be okay. He'll be just fine.
Oh, yeah.
He's just really needing like attention right now. And then the thing I recognized the kid from was the movie. Have you guys seen Mr. Holmes?
I have not yet.
No.
Ian McKellen?
Yeah, with Ian McKellen. Yeah. So I personally hate that film.
Oh.
It's god awful, but he's the little boy in that. And I was like, that's where I know you from. He's actually a pretty good actor. And then last but not least, she's kind of like a middling role. Carrie Fox plays an older woman named Bella, who I'll talk about more here in a minute. She does a lot of British TV, but the thing that I was excited about is she was the main girl in Shallow Grave.
Ah.
One of my favorites. Love that movie.
Such a good film.
Yes.
Such a good film. So so that was really exciting. I was like, and she's a great actress. She's an older lady now, so almost unrecognizable from those days. But
Yeah, she is.
oh my gosh. The film itself. Okay, so I've given you guys a basic idea of the plot. What we do is we start off kind of with this collective of botanists, and they're trying to grow 2 species of plant for the flower exhibition. The flower exhibition is very important. We gotta make it in time for the flower exhibition. Eric,
Oh, yeah.
It's vital for some reason.
Huge.
Yeah.
New York
Gotta
Toy
do it.
Fair for plants.
Apparently, like they're obsessed in a very British way. I felt like there was a little nod towards Hot Fuzz with that kind of like very British country kind of important thing. There's a lot of people who are like, "Ooh, my cake, gotta get it ready for the bake-off," and yeah. Anyway. So the scientists are trying to make very nice flowers for this exhibition, and also for corporate greed. So that's exciting. One is extremely beautiful and takes no work whatsoever to maintain. So there's these beautiful blue flowers. The second species are these like little red Dr. Seuss style puffballs. That take a lot of work and a lot of care, but in return, they give you a scent that's supposed to make you happy. Basically, they're trying to breed this as a way to sell into everybody's homes, to give them like this, And the other thing is they've made it so they can't reproduce on their own, these puffball flowers. So basically they can control the market. Nobody can breed their own version of this plant. You have to purchase it from these people once it's released. Alice, who is the main woman in charge of this project and is the designer of the plant, essentially, she's a single mom. She's got a son, Joe. She's named the plants after him. The plants are called Little Joe. It's very weird. I don't know why you would ever do that as a mother, but that's fine. Whatever. And she decides she has this sort of guilty thing where she's the closed off scientific mother who's very like straightforward and not very feeling and not very involved in her son's life. She loves him, but she's never there. She's always working on the damn plants. So she's kind of got this guilt thing going on, and she decides to take a plant home to him. The plant and Joe start to become close, and she's like, you gotta talk to the plant. You can kind of tell in the background that something's going on. Like, she comes home at one point and he's just sat in the chair, and she's like, hey, like, want to get some takeout? He's like, I've already eaten. So yeah, so you're like, huh, I guess the plant, he's all right, cool. Meanwhile, the puffball plants in the science lab have expelled a bunch of pollen and have killed the blue plants. And with all the blue plants dead, her co-scientist, who had like a weird incident where he like tripped on one of the plants and got a bunch of pollen in his face, he decides without asking or telling anyone to strip out all the blue plants and plant more of the red plants. So we start to get this hint that like maybe the plants want to be reproduced in another way. Then we have another scientist, Bella, the woman from Shallow Grave, who's got like mental health issues and is a little bit on the edge. And everyone's like, she's wacky. And she has this dog that she takes with her everywhere. The dog gets locked in with the plants, and the next morning comes out and she says, this isn't my dog. He's not behaving like my dog. He bites her. And she goes and has him put down. She immediately figures out what's going on. There's like there's no like, she just knows. She's like, yeah, so the plants are taking over people's brains. And because they can't reproduce on their own, they're controlling people and getting them to reproduce on their behalf. So you should be aware that these plants are bad. So she's trying to warn Alice, and Alice is like, you're stupid and you're crazy, so I'm not going to listen to you. But she does start to get little hints here and there because of Joe's changing behavior. It's almost like you can't tell if he's being more of a teenager or if he is being changed by the plant. There's like this kind of line they're riding for a little while because he's snarkier and he's like, I'm going to go move in with my dad. But at the same time, he also starts to just act very like unemotional too. So he'll say these things without the kind of moral care that you would have underneath. He also starts to hang out with his girlfriend a lot. So bad news. In the meantime, also, Alice is noticing that her coworkers are getting stranger and stranger. So, for example, the team that was doing the blue flowers suddenly seemed totally cool with all the red flowers. Like they were very angry that her plants had killed their plants, but she confesses to kind of the head of the project that she had actually manipulated this plant's DNA and done exactly the thing they aren't supposed to do. And he's like, no, it's cool. Don't worry about it. We got to get it ready for the flower show. Seems cool. And previously he'd been very like uptight about a lot of things. So you're like, oh, okay, something's going on here. This is where I'm going to get into spoiler territory. So before we officially decide whether or not we're talking about spoilers, spoiler alert, people. Will Robinson, warning, go 30 seconds ahead. So she decides she's concerned. She's going to kill the plants because everyone's changing. Her partner, who's helping her design these plants, Chris, seems to be a little weird, but she hasn't noticed. Other people have told her because she's not good at reading the room. And so she's like, okay, well, everyone's changing, so this isn't good. So clearly this plant is trying to kill people. And my coworkers have just murdered the older woman who was trying to warn everybody. So probably should take care of this. They do it off screen, so you don't really see it. I kind of wish you did see something of it, but so she tries to lower the temperature to kill them. Chris suddenly magically appears in the botany room and is like, no, it's the middle of the night. Don't you kill these plants, and then punches her in the face. She's knocked out, leaves her in the room, locks the door. The plants all go, ooh, warm. And pollen comes out. And then you get like 3 more scenes where you're just like watching her. And I think they're trying to tease out like, did she get infected? Didn't she get infected? Is she somehow immune to it? You know, and she's just plant pod person. But the sort of twist to it is she was pretty unhappy to a certain level before. She wasn't really able to have the relationship she wanted with either her work or her son because they were conflicting with each other. And instead she's like, oh no, my son's going to go live with his dad and I'm just going to focus more on my work. And I'm actually pretty happy about it. I'm okay being a bad mom. So there's like a happy, unhappy ending. All right. Spoiler territory over. This film, it wasn't my favorite. It had some really cool things going on in it though, so I don't want to completely dismiss it. The good stuff that was happening, I think the concept is really cool and really creepy. I love the idea of these like plants that seem beautiful, but they don't fully understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. I think that's why Invasion of the Body Snatchers is so interesting. The style and design is pretty neat, so it's very beautiful. Everything's very thought through. There's very distinct color schemes. The set design and the general art and color is really just fun to look at. I don't know if it adds much to the characters themselves because you kind of feel like, I don't know if like this woman who's uptight really sits around and thinks, you know what, my mint green science jacket's going to look really hot today with a peach shirt and a dark orange pair of pants that match my hair. Like it's just a little too much at times, but you know, they did think on it and that's cool. The acting for the most part is very good. I think Ben Wheatley's great. I think the main woman is pretty neat. The woman who plays Bella from Shallow Grave is awesome. There is one character I hate and I'll get to that in a second. The plant on plant violence, super neat. I love that. Plants are like, I'm going to murder the other plants and take their homes. Yeah. The are they, aren't they moments are good. The Dr. Seuss design of the plant is good. There is, my favorite bit about this, honestly, is there's this great gaslighting scene where her son and his girlfriend are sat in the living room and she sits down to talk to them and they're like, yeah, you're right. The plants have overtaken our brains. We aren't the people that we used to be. In fact, there's this really, really good quote in here where the teen girl says, it's like being dead. You don't notice you're dead, do you? And the boy, her son goes, yeah, that's a really good comparison. Like you're a shadow version of yourself watching through this body. And then after they've explained this to her and she's just staring at them in horror, they're like, ha, kidding, look at your face. There's just a lot of like gaslighting moments. People will be like, you know, you keep saying that so-and-so's changed, but really you seem to have changed. I don't think you're aware, but you know, you've been acting very odd. Maybe you should take a break or whatever. So that I think is really well done. And of course, this constant like desire to do right by the plant fair is pretty fun. Bad? There's a lot of problems. I think namely it steals from everybody else. It's basically a hipster version of Invasion of the Body Snatchers with like a Wes Anderson style and design. And the music is pretty much ripped off from Midsummer. And the pacing is basically from The Lobster and the jokes are stolen from Hot Fuzz. So,
wow.
Yeah. It's not throughout. It's not really, nothing that's happening seems to be for its own story. It feels like it doesn't know what it wants to be. It hasn't decided, am I a horror film? If I'm a horror film, maybe they should show the woman's dead body and maybe they should up the like eeriness of the plants. And, you know, if it's a mystery or if it's a comedy or any of these other things, it could go in a different direction. But instead it treads this kind of odd line where everything kind of keeps falling flat because it feels like it doesn't quite know what kind of movie it's trying to tell. The other thing that I hate, there's the girlfriend character's this girl named Selma. The actress who's playing her is just god awful.
Oh.
She's just god awful. She's supposed to be like, oh, invaded by the plant, so she's talking very seriously, but it just looks like a girl in high school who's been like cast in her first school play, and she's like, okay, act like a robot. Oh, I'll be a robot now. Ooh. And you're just like, I can just see all of the acting happening right here. And just every time she talks, and they give her like too many lines. They just needed to, she was fine in the beginning and they just need to cut her out. And instead she's in almost every scene with the teenage son once they're invaded by the plant. And last but not least, there's some weird font choices happening at the beginning. So when they're like written by, directed by, they have these red, weird, hard to read red font that's just slipping left to right and right to left across the screen. And I'm like, this is dumb and exists for no reason. Yeah, that's kind of my takeaway from this film. I feel like the director, I think she thought she was doing something slightly different than she was, or she thought that things were a lot more meaningful than they are, like this mother's disassociation with her child. And there's a lot of like therapy sessions where like we're doing psychoanalysis and like, oh, what is this plant brain thing? I don't know. I think it's trying to be smart, and I think it could be an incredible film, but I think that it just fell in a few very key places. Oh, one more thing. The sound design is really hard.
There you go. I couldn't believe you hadn't mentioned that yet.
You know what?
God.
Yeah, it's so bad. So like anytime it's trying to give you this idea that the plant is doing something exciting, it does this like screeching sound. It's like this high pitched screeching sound.
It's the noise they almost always use when somebody's right next to an explosion and they want to kind of see, this is my ears are ringing from the explosion. And it's that stupid high pitched noise.
Yes, it's that. And then the rest of the time, the only other two real sounds that they dip into is like a pan flute. You're like, I'm at a freaking World Fair festival walking around with a corn dog right now at all times. Freaking dumb ass pan flute. And there's like a dog bark sound where like, I mean, as tension rises, it's like ruff, 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 and it's like mixed with another sound. I'm like, this is the dog, and you're trying to like insinuate, I guess, the dog that like was in the film. I don't know. It's annoying as hell.
Yeah, I'd agree with the sound thing. It almost made me turn off the movie for a while, but it kind of fades a little bit as it goes along, and he's used a little bit less. But man, I'm pretty sure that the early 2020s are going to be known as the magenta period for films, because holy shit, that color is all over the place.
It's true. Yeah, that's like their at one point it was funny because you couldn't even tell which character you're looking at because there's so much magenta in that bedroom. There's a scene where she's asleep and it's like, who is this? It's someone with short hair, and her defining feature is she's got very red hair. And so with this magenta color all over her, you're like, is that the sun? Is that Ben Wheatley? Who am I looking at right now? And it like really takes away from some key moments, or like the plant light is this extremely strong orange magenta color, and it's just weird. It just feels like a set piece. It feels like a stage play, like a spotlight on the plant.
Richard Stanley used it phenomenal in Color Out of Dark, but a lot of other places are just kind of using it as a fill light.
Out of space, you mean?
Sorry,
Was the color of the flower magenta, or
it was like a deep red? It was like, it was a bright red.
Yeah.
Okay.
So magenta, if it filled with the color of magenta, which it did a couple of times over the flowers, it just killed the color of the flower.
Yeah.
Interesting. I mean, I know why Richard Stanley used it, because magenta is a color that you don't find in nature.
Right.
And so if they wanted to use that as the flower color, I guess I would
That'd be cool.
able to forgive that because that makes sense. Tell me this now: is the flower completely man-made, or did they start with something and then splice something else into it? Do they get into that?
They never really define it. It sounds like it's the core genetic part of it is synthetic. I mean, I'm sure it's got to have some original plant origin.
Yeah,
I'm just trying to figure out where it attains consciousness and decides it's going to take out the world.
It doesn't really go into it. It's much more like the only thing they say to try and explain that is that it can't reproduce on its own. So this is its solution naturally in science, like in biology. This is its way of continuing to reproduce, is taking over people's brains and creating people who are going to help it plant and make more of them.
Right. It was the logic leap or whatever you want to make with the movie, where this is what it is. I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad choice, but that's the choice that was made. It seems like we're just not going to worry about the origins of this plant specifically, which is weird because that's what the whole movie is sort of about.
I got to say, it is a very cool premise. I'm bummed to hear that it doesn't hit.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea. And I really do think that if they had just made a decision which direction they want to go and just stuck to it, they could have had a really good film. But I just feel like the director might have been a little tone deaf because she wrote and directed. I don't know. It just feels like she doesn't fully know what direction she wants to go. And therefore, it's artsy. It's psychological.
It's very artsy.
Yeah.
It has at least 2 shots where there's 2 people sitting on this, talking to each other like that, and the camera just zooms and keeps zooming in
past them
until they disappear.
Yeah.
And it's just zooming into the wall. It doesn't continue on and go to another scene or anything. It's just
No, and that's the problem is these shots are a little pointless. Like there's this cool 70s pop zoom where she's running through some white stairwells, and it's 100% like 70s like chase scene, like we're in on this person's face. But there's no reason for it really. So it looks cool, and I know where it's coming from, but I don't know why it's there.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well,
so what did you guys pick?
How about I go next?
Sure. Knock it out.
I wanted to do, as soon as you said this, I was like, I'm doing Godzilla versus Biollante. I'm a big Godzilla fan, and I loved this movie. It came out in 1989, and it was impossible to find anywhere. For some reason, all of those movies are available on various streaming sites, and I have a bunch of them on DVD. I couldn't find this one, and then when I went onto Amazon to try and get it on DVD, it's $60 for some reason.
Wow.
I even turned to nefarious means to try and download it and couldn't find it anywhere illegally, so I was like, fuck it. But that's a cool movie where a scientist, as you do, he's got a piece of Godzilla DNA and he's got a rose, and he mixes the two, and this thing turns into this gigantic rose monster that's really
my god
cool. Anyway, since
that
I couldn't,
amazing.
It's a blast. Yeah. Instead, I looked through lists and did some research, and I came up with The Freak Maker.
Relax. Get ready to have fun, because you've got a date with somebody special. The walking, crawling nightmares from the pits of hell. The mutations.
You may think you are normal, but you are all the product of mutations. Your ancestors, our ancestors, were freaks.
Enter a world of the twisted and deformed. A world of monsters and madmen.
Mr. Lynch! Aren't you going to have a drink with us to help celebrate Kathy's birthday?
You expect me to sit down with a bunch of freaks?
He's one of us.
We accept you.
He's one of us.
Yes.
Our brother.
Shut up!
Our loving father.
What you say?
and only 24 hours to create the mutations. It's not nice to fool with Mother Nature. It can be horrifying. The Mutations.
From 1974, also called The Mutations. Anybody hear this, Stephen?
I looked at it for this, but I didn't.
Okay.
I've never heard of this.
It's available on Prime. So, and I ended up loving this too. 1974. The budget was about $500,000. No information on the box office. The Rotten Tomatoes critic score is unavailable also, but the audience has it at 40%. It is directed by Jack Cardiff, who has hundreds of IMDb credits. 15 of those credits are director's credits, but you're going to mostly know him as a director of photography and cinematographer for such gigantic movies as Ghost Story, Conan the Destroyer, Cat's Eye, Rambo 2, just a ton of huge movies in the 80s.
Wow.
Yeah, it was written by Robert D. Weinbach, who has only one other writing credit, and that was a movie called Shiver from 2012. I looked at it. It did not seem to be a horror film. It looked like it was maybe a thriller, and it's very, very low budget. It stars Donald Pleasance, who you would know from a ton of John Carpenter films and Tony Kaye's pronunciation of him. It also stars... It also stars, believe it or not, Tom Baker, who you would mostly know from Doctor Who as the brightly scarf-wearing doctor.
That's so weird.
Yeah, and it also stars Brad Harris from such series as Falcon Crest, Dallas, 75 other credits. He is ridiculously handsome. And Julie Ege, who has 25 credits, mostly Danish television stuff. So this is a weird movie made in a weird time. It's British, and I would definitely call it an exploitation film, and it definitely exploits genetic disabilities. So if you're at all uncomfortable about things like that, there's a through line from Todd Browning's Freaks to this movie for sure.
Wow.
The premise. Students have been going missing from this local college, and we see very quickly that it is the work of Pleasance, or as I like to call him, Donald Pleasance, who is a mad scientist who's experimenting with mixing human D with, you guys tell me, what's he mixing this human DNA with?
Plant?
Yes.
Shark.
No, it's plants, Vanessa. I thought if anyone would get it, you would get it.
I was just excited. I'm sorry.
I was hesitating.
I just let it out. Shark.
For some reason, he wants to create a life form that has the strengths of both human and plant.
Finally.
Well, I mean, it does. As you're watching this, you're like, well, okay, why?
So you can just feed out in the sun?
I know. I was going to say, what is it that plants do that is so good?
I think the term you guys didn't pay close attention to is he's a mad scientist.
Oh.
Which explains all of his fucking shit. So he is using the co-owner of a freak show to kidnap the students. This is Tom Baker. Now, Tom Baker owns this freak show. It's not a traveling carnival. It is a well-known freak show kind of in the middle of London. And all of the people playing the freaks are freaks. So they've got the bearded woman. They've got a lot of little people. They've got the eyeball guy, and you know who I'm talking about, where he stares at you and his eyes literally pop out of his head. It's very uncomfortable looking. And the thing is, all of these people are great actors. Oh my God, they're so good in this movie. And we start finding out that most of the freaks have been supplied by Donald Pleasance to Tom Baker because they are the failures of all of his experiments.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. There is even an homage to Freaks in this movie where there is a little speech given, and the "one of us" line is spoken. I was like, okay, they know exactly what they're doing here. It takes a little while to get going. People are going missing, and we're. The weird thing is we're shown everything that's going on, but it's all in kind of a really boring way. We get to see the inside of Pleasance's laboratory, which has some freakishly large plants that are ridiculous, like a gigantic Venus flytrap that he feeds a rabbit to, and shit like that. And it's bad effects. I mean, these things look like Muppet plants. You know, it's 1974. So it takes a while to get going, but we see the very attractive doctors, who are played by Brad Harris and Julie Ege. They're trying to solve this mystery, and they actually visit Donald Pleasance and see all the genetic stuff that he's been fooling around with. But once it does kick in, it gets great. So I'm not really going to go into spoilers with this because I do want you to see it, and I think it's probably a underseen film, so I don't want to give anything away, but super, super satisfying climax. We get a big fight scene between Tom Baker and Harris, which has the freak show owner about to kill him when all of a sudden all of the other freaks show up to stop him, of course, as they do, because they're gonna get their comeuppance on him.
Did they tar and feather and make him into a chicken person?
They do not, unfortunately, but they get their revenge on him, and we do get to see the results of the human plant hybrid, which is fucking spectacular. So, so it all leads up to a big climax where you get to see a lot of really cool shit. I'm telling you, 40 minutes of this movie is a yawner, and the other 40 minutes is like the best exploitation movie you have ever seen. Super satisfying. It's very glorious, well worth waiting for. This is just one of those little movies that I had never heard of. I had never seen anything for. I was surprised to see the actors in it that were in it, because I was like, wow, I guess I thought I knew most of Donald Pleasance's films, especially anything that would be a horror film. I could find like zero trivia on this, anything. The only thing I can say about this is it's available if you are a Amazon Prime member to just watch right now and start streaming. You will not be disappointed. So
there's the weirdest, coolest stuff on Amazon, just like hidden. I don't know. They just collect this garbage from like all eras that everyone else doesn't want. And there's some hidden gems in there.
Yeah. And I know that this was put out by, I think it was Scream Factory as a Blu-ray. So I imagine there's a bunch of cool extras on there that are not available on Prime. So
sure sounds like one that should have, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, give it a try on Prime for free. And if you dig it as much as I did, maybe you go and search out the DVD.
Did you go out and search out the DVD?
I did not. Come on, I got shit to do, man.
Do you? Do you really?
Well, it all involves plants. It all works together, man. You should have lots of plants. Alrighty, so let's see. Third plant movie. This one was less of a hidden gem and less of a, definitely not an arts house movie. In the end, a lot more more entertaining than I was expecting it to be. 2008's Shrooms.
So, a shroom trip has to be outdoors, the right environment with the right people.
Are you sure this is a good time to go looking for mushrooms?
No better, we'll have the whole park to ourselves.
Right.
So tell us a ghost story. Strange things happen up here around shroom season. People missing only for their bodies to turn up mutilated, but always have one thing in common.
What?
Supposed to heighten the sexual experience tenfold. Holy shit.
There's someone there. Is Pluto back?
As my conclusion, Bluto's having forced 10 visual hallucinations. He took the fuzz.
What a dick face. Hey, asshole, this isn't funny!
You hear that?
There's somebody there! Hello?
trip, man, right? This is a trip.
Hello!
Yeah, let's go.
Take the I don't know what's going on in my head, what's real, what's not. No, this isn't real.
What is happening?
This has the, I'm not going to say this is overly wrong, Rotten Tomatoes ratings. It's a little harsh, but 22 for critics and 27 from the audience. So there's a lot of agreement going on there.
Ouch.
Yes. Directed by Patty Breithnock, German, I think. I don't know, Breithnock, who's also known for the huge and giant films Blowdown and I Went Down, which are, I don't know if they're connected. They are not adult films.
They're not?
No.
Okay.
And written by Pierce Elliott, who's known for his work with Man About Dog. Not Man Bites Dog.
Oh, I was going to say
Man About Dog. So I'm giving you a little hint there that the pedigree from this is not necessarily a well-run, but the director he's done like 12 films, so he's done some work, just not a lot you've heard of. The stars, Lindsay Hahn, who is probably best known 7 episodes of True Blood and 3 episodes of Star Trek Voyager. So she wasn't really a regular, but she was on it occasionally. Just some random name. There wasn't anything that stuck out to me. And lots of TV. Jack Huston, Robert Kennedy in The Irishman. He played Robert Kennedy. And 41 episodes of Boardwalk Empire. So I must have been one of the major regulars on that. And last actor I wrote down was Max Cash, who largely because he was in a movie called Zigzag in Holes. I love finding these weird-ass titles that people have been in. This is a version of a slasher film. It is not a straightforward slasher film. It is a take on a slasher film. So it does have slasher trope 101. All the people get together at an airport where they've flown to Ireland, where their representative is going to take them out into the hills where they will do Irish shrooms.
That's the point of their trip?
Yes, is to trip.
It's the trip.
Okay.
Yes. I'm not sure. Maybe.
Where are they from? Are they like dumb Americans?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you've got the group. It's not quite as defined as most slasher films, but there is the dumb jock who's pointlessly violent. So you've got him, and nobody seems to like them. So you're always going, why do you bring this guy with you on these trips? So they arrive there.
Especially if you're going to do a very social drug.
Yeah.
You want it to be with people you like.
Friendship runs deep, man. You know, you got stuck with some guy in high school. You got to keep him around for all of time. It's the rule in movies.
Okay, in movies, I don't think I did that.
No, I don't even hang out with the people I was friends with in high school.
But on the way to take the shrooms, they're driving through the forest and they run over a goat where they think they might be able to save it. But the hopelessly violent guy, of course, decides, well, we must kill it. Like, really? Oh, yeah. It's like, okay, I guess we're killing the goat. But out in the woods, you see the Irish version of hillbillies watching them kill the goat. Uh-oh. So they head out into the forest and start looking for the right kind of shrooms. And they come across this one shroom that's, I can't remember if they said it black-hearted or black-headed mushroom. And the Irish guy says, whatever you do, don't take this one. It'll send you on a nightmare tour. It's like, I wonder what's going to happen here. And of course takes that one. Not even prepared. She just bites the head off of that sucker and goes for it.
Or does she just grab one?
She heard the take describing what the mushroom kind of looks like, but she missed the thing on the black color. The meantime, so she starts to see stuff. She thinks she's seeing the future, what's going on. She's hallucinating. This is where the film separates from a lot of the slasher cliches. The hallucinations are well done, sometimes story important, and sometimes freaking hilarious, intentionally. Solid, good humor, not just like, ooh, that was dumb. So she goes back to the camp and they're trying to take care of her. And while she's in the camp trying to recover, the guy starts telling the story of the haunted hospital that's in the woods area. And while he's telling the story, she sees it. She hallucinates the story he's telling. And it's like, okay, that's kind of cool. But,
yeah, I like that.
So that's a neat thing. And of course, then we go to the jock guy does dumb jock things and gets angry and punches another guy. And after everybody tells him he's an asshole and goes to bed, he proceeds to take most of the mushrooms that have already been prepared. So now he goes on his little trip. His is more standard, and this one's kind of funny because he goes out in the woods thinking he's chasing a woman, and he starts talking to a cow. Like, okay, this is kind of fun. And the character's name, which I didn't realize until they started looking for him, the jock guy is called Bluto.
A little on the nose.
Yes. Okay, I'm not the great. I've never done shrooms. I'm intrigued, but I haven't done them. But there's a big violent fight scene between two people after they take the shrooms, which seems out of character from what I've heard of taking shrooms.
Right.
But
is that like a bad trip? Can that happen with a?
Yeah, I don't know. I know you get sick on it. You tend to get sick on it. You'll throw up probably at least once, and that's supposed to be when it really kicks in.
Right. I've heard that as well. But I think that the bad trip would mostly be a mental thing. I don't think that you fight on shrooms.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I've never seen that in
alcohol thing.
Yeah, there you go. But the leading lady continues to have hallucinations of where people are dying, and she's trying to catch up with them to stop the killings from happening. And of course, she's slasher film, so she keeps failing. So, Then they actually end up in that creepy hospital. These are the best horror scenes in the film because it's a creepy ass hospital. It's really nicely done. The DP on the film was a guy named Nanu Segal. Who I'm like, this looks good enough as he does on his stuff. No, not really. He's usually a camera op on a lot of stuff, but there's few films he's DP'd on. I think he should do more because there's some really visually nice stuff going on in this movie. There's a very strange scene for a slasher film where they're back at the camp. Cops start showing up. A helicopter shows up and is airlifting to check the people to see if any of them are still alive. And
what? So the movie's over. That's what's happened. The movie's ended.
Sort of. Well, what was that? Plane just flew over somebody?
I think there's a plane on my end. I can hear it. It's like a weird bumblebee sounding plane.
Yeah. So here's the big spoiler thing. And if the two of you want to listen to this movie, I'm pretty sure neither one of you are going to run out to it. But here's the big spoiler. There is a spoiler to this ending. The whole time, she was the killer.
Oh.
The lady tripping on the bad shrooms was out there killing the people and thinking she was hallucinating it and getting the other people to follow along with what she was doing. So it's all right. It's not an unexpected twist, really. There's a few scenes where she's doing stuff you're going, this doesn't seem like a hallucination anymore. This seems like she's actually doing something. Overall, I mean, if you're a slasher fan, I would say you should definitely check it out. If you're really interested in visually interesting films, there's enough to like here. I wouldn't, if you get excited by the recommendation and end up fast forwarding just to watch the hallucinations, I can understand that. But they are really neat looking, and overall, this was better than I was expecting it to be, especially from the name and from the trailers. Like, oh well, we'll see. So Shrooms, available Tubi and Amazon, a bunch of places, and it actually, I forgot to mention, it did almost $5 million box office, so it had at least a little bit of a release.
Why, if you're saying check it out and everything, why the low Rotten Tomatoes from the audience?
I think it's just if you're a really heavy slasher fan, the part of the tropes it doesn't do well, there's no real solid sinning like you expect to see in a Friday the 13th movie. There's no naked people running around. And the violence is very muted. There's not a lot of axes going into heads. There's not a lot of blood in the film at all. So I think if you went to it expecting a slasher film, you're going to be probably disappointed. Watching it going 27%, I can kind of see that.
Well, all right. I guess that means that it's my turn to go next, right?
Yes.
I mean, my turn to
Yeah.
pick next for next week's show. I'm going something in a little different direction. You know, like I said, I've got a big, huge list of genre ideas and stuff like this, and this is one that I hope that everybody will dig, and that is movies that have Lance Henriksen in them.
Yes.
But
Now,
he's done so few films.
now, you might say that's not a genre, Kelly. He has 255 film credits on IMDb. That's more than most genre films.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And a lot of them are genre films.
Absolutely. And so, with that being said, I have a few no-nos.
What could one it be?
Terminator is not allowed. Aliens is not allowed.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say Pumpkinhead is not allowed.
Okay.
Sounds good.
But everything else is open. And I mean, there's a bunch that are going to pop right to your head immediately. But if you start scrolling through IMDb, you're going to be like, oh, holy shit. I mean, also, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of stinkers in this list.
Oh, yeah.
Harbinger down. It's amazing. It's a good film.
But there's also the bonus. Did Lance Henriksen help the film? And he always does.
We should make that a thing at the end of it. Do I think that Lance Henriksen helped this film? Because the whole reason I brought this one up is I watched this last week and I wasn't going to talk about it because it's bad. Exorcism at 60,000 feet.
Oh, I was looking at that. That popped up in some trailer thing I have.
It is a comedy that is a riff on the Airplane movies and horror films.
Okay.
And
too bad
it's or not Airplane movies, the airport movies. So there's basically this group of very different people on a flight, you know, nuns, a basketball player, you know, all of this shit like you would see in the old airport movies, and it's all horror veterans.
Oh.
You know, so Adrian Barbeau is in it, and Lance Henriksen. Lance is the pilot of the plane, and he is drinking the entire time. It is really, really bad, you guys.
And the description is so choice, though. It's so
I almost
bad.
want to buy the poster for it because it's totally a airport movie poster of a plane, you know, flying through a storm, but in the storm is like the devil's face and stuff. It's a pretty great poster. Anyway, I started thinking about that and I looked up other movies he's been in and I was like, that's it. This is going to be my pick for next week.
Excellent.
So with that in mind, big thanks out to all the regulars who are always sharing and everything, Bob and Ron and Danny and Heather Reesby and just everybody. And Eric, anything else you want to add in here?
Yeah, I want to give a little thanks out to a new guy I haven't seen too much of before, Will Lau. Reached out talking about appreciating us, how much you like the show, and then to say thank you. I'll do. And we will even threw out a idea for a show that I might use in the future. I'm going, that's an interesting one. So
cool.
We'll see there.
Well, thanks. Welcome aboard, Will. Vanessa, anybody you want to say hi to or anything before I kick us all out of here?
I don't know. It's funny because a lot of my friends end up listening to this and I don't know that they're listening, and then they'll just be like, oh yeah, that one episode. I'm like, so hi to anyone who knows me. Thanks for listening.
All right, we're gonna edit
actually,
that
I do really appreciate our fans who've been making all the really like fun like memes and pictures and stuff, and really like, you know, taking our strange Aeons army forward. It's really fun and neat to see, and it's nice to know people are listening.
Yeah. I'd say we've got a small but very dedicated fan base.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's great.
So, okay, guys, that's it for this week's episode, and we will see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. And in between that, some more Short Aeons episodes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
All right. See you later.
See ya.
Bye.
Our podcast is recorded at Eric's house, and Vanessa's house, and Kelly's house, and is engineered and edited by Eric Morgret. Our theme music is Strange Aeons Part 1 by the band Nightshade and is used with permission. Find Strange Aeons Radio on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and wherever fine podcasts are found.